I never thought life would bring me back to him like this. Not after everything that happened. Not after all the years of silence. But life has strange ways of circling back to the people we once loved, the people we once lost, and the people we thought we would never see again. It all began on a cold evening, the kind of evening where the wind cuts through your clothes and the sky hangs low with heavy gray clouds. I was coming out of a small grocery store with a bag of bread, milk, and a few fruits. Nothing special, just another quiet day in my simple, predictable life. But as I stepped outside, I heard a sound. A soft, tired cough. The kind of cough that comes from deep inside someone who has been suffering in silence for far too long. I turned. Across the street, near the edge of an old abandoned building, sat a man wrapped in a thin blanket. His head was down, his hands were trembling. People walked past him without looking, without slowing down, without even noticing that a human being was sitting there, shaking, freezing, alone. At first, I looked at him the way anyone would, just another stranger on the street, just another lost soul in a cold world. But then, something about his posture, his shoulders, the way he held his hands close to his chest, the way he tilted his head, something familiar. A voice inside me whispered, "No, it cannot be." I stepped closer, slowly, each breath becoming heavier than the one before it. With every step, my heart began to pound. My fingers went cold, my palms began to sweat. And then, when I was standing only a few feet away, he lifted his head. My grocery bag slipped out of my hand. It was him. The man I once loved, the man I married, the man I left, the man who left me, the man whose absence shaped who I became. He was sitting on the street, unshaven, thin, exhausted, looking older than I ever imagined he would. His eyes, once bright and full of fire, were now dim and lost, like a candle that had almost burned out. He blinked. He stared at me as if he was unsure whether I was real, or a memory, or a ghost from a past life. My voice cracked as I whispered, Is that you?" For a long moment, he didn't speak. He just looked at me, looked through me, looked into the years between us. And then, in the softest, weakest voice I had ever heard from him, he spoke. "My God, you came back." My knees almost gave out. I hadn't come back. Not for him, not for anything. I was simply walking home from the grocery store. But somehow it felt like fate had been waiting for this moment. A moment I never prepared for. A moment I tried to avoid for years. I knelt in front of him, ignoring the stares of people walking by, ignoring the cold, ignoring the ache rising inside my chest. "What happened to you?" I asked softly. He tried to smile, but it trembled at the corners and quickly collapsed into a sad, broken expression. "It's a long story, but I'm glad you're here." I didn't know what to feel. Pain? Shock? Confusion? Guilt? Everything came rushing at once. The memories, the arguments, the laughter, the promises, the day we walked away from each other, the years of distance, the nights I cried alone, the times I wondered where he was, the times I convinced myself I didn't care anymore. But standing in front of him, watching him shiver, watching him tremble, I realized something. No matter how much time had passed, no matter how much had changed, a part of me still cared. A part of me always would. "Come with me," I said softly. "Let me help you." But he shook his head. "No, I can't." "Why not?" He looked away, ashamed. "You don't know everything. You don't know what I did. You don't know why I ended up here. You don't know what I've been hiding. My breath caught. What do you mean? He swallowed hard, and for a moment I thought he might collapse. Then he said something that turned my world upside down. He didn't fall. He was pushed. My heart stopped. By who? I whispered. He closed his eyes. Tears collected in the corners. His voice shook. By someone we both trusted. I stared at him, confused, terrified, and desperate for answers, but he didn't speak again. He just lowered his head as if holding a weight too heavy for him to carry alone. The wind grew colder, the street grew darker, and a silence stretched between us, a silence filled with years of pain, regret, and unspoken truths. I didn't know what destiny had planned. I didn't know why life had brought me here today. But I knew one thing. This was not the end of the story between us. It was only the beginning.
I stood there in front of him, the cold wind brushing against my face, yet the only thing I felt was the heavy weight inside my chest. His words kept echoing in my mind. I didn't fall. I was pushed. I looked at him closely. His hands were trembling, his beard was untrimmed, his clothes were worn out. He looked like someone who had been carrying years of pain all alone. I took a slow breath and tried to steady my voice. "Who pushed you?" I asked again. He did not look up. He simply tightened the thin blanket around his shoulders. "It doesn't matter now," he whispered. "It does," I said gently. "It matters to me." He finally raised his eyes. They were filled with exhaustion and something else, something like fear. "You shouldn't get involved," he murmured. "Not after everything. Not after the way we ended." I felt a small pain in my heart. The way we ended. Yes, that part of the story still lived inside me like an old wound that never fully healed. But this moment was not about the past, or the mistakes, or the choices we made. This moment was about a man sitting on the street, alone, freezing and broken. And that man was once my world. I sat beside him on the cold pavement, ignoring the strange looks from strangers. I did not care. I just wanted to understand. "Listen," I said softly, "whatever happened, you don't deserve to be here. Nobody deserves to be here." He smiled sadly. "You always had a soft heart, and I ruined it." I shook my head. "No, I'm not here to judge you. I'm here because seeing you like this hurts me more than I expected." He looked surprised, maybe even confused. "Why?" he asked quietly. I swallowed hard. "Because once, you were the person I thought I would grow old with." He blinked slowly, like those words were too heavy to carry. A silence settled between us, soft, deep, and full of memories. After a long moment, he spoke again. "I never meant for things to end the way they did. You have to believe me." "I know," I said gently, "but that was years ago." "Yes, years ago. And yet it feels like yesterday." I pulled my jacket tighter as the wind blew harder. A part of me knew we needed to move. He was too cold, too weak. "Let me take you somewhere warm, a shelter, a small motel, anywhere." But again, he shook his head. "I can't," he whispered. "I'll bring trouble to you." "What trouble?" He hesitated, then said something that made my nerves tighten. "The person who pushed me down, they're still looking for me." My breath stopped. "Looking for you? Why?" He looked away, then said something that made my nerves tighten. "The person who pushed me down, they're still looking for me." My breath stopped. "Looking for you? Why?" He looked away, then said something that made my nerves tighten. I know something I shouldn't know. The streets suddenly felt quieter. Even the traffic sounds seemed distant. I tried to keep my voice calm. What do you know? He took a shaky breath and looked straight into my eyes, as if deciding whether to trust me again after all these years. Then he whispered, a truth that could destroy a family. My heart skipped. Whose family? He closed his eyes for a brief moment. Yours. My fingers went cold instantly. He must have seen the shock on my face before he quickly added, I never wanted to tell you. I never wanted to come near you again, but I had nowhere else to go. I felt my throat tighten. What truth? I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, his shoulders slumped, as if the weight of the secret was crushing him. Please, he said softly, not here, not on the street. Just sit with me a little longer. And so I did. I sat with him in silence as people hurried by. Cars passed, lights changed, the world moved, but for us, time felt frozen. It was strange. After so many years apart, we were sitting together again like two shadows from a forgotten past. He slowly started talking, not about the painful truth, but about the years in between. He told me about the small jobs he worked after we separated, how he moved from one city to another, trying to start fresh, how he tried to rebuild a life, but kept failing, how loneliness slowly became a habit. He wasn't trying to gain sympathy. He wasn't trying to make himself look innocent. He spoke with the tone of someone who had accepted his fate. But behind every word, I could feel the exhaustion, the regret, the heavy responsibility of a secret he had carried far too long. I listened quietly, letting him speak at his own pace. His voice was rough, but every word felt honest. Then he said something that made my heart ache. I used to think about you. Every time life pushed me down, I remembered how you used to lift me up. I guess I didn't appreciate that enough. I looked at him for a long moment. You could have called, I said softly. You could have reached out. He gave a sad smile. No, I lost the right to reach out to you the day I chose my pride over our marriage. I closed my eyes. The memories came back, slowly, painfully. The arguments, the distance that grew, the silence that replaced our laughter. The day he walked out with a suitcase and didn't look back. And now here we are, two people who once shared a home, a life, a dream, now sitting side by side on a cold pavement, trying to understand where everything went wrong. I opened my eyes and looked at him again. I don't blame you anymore. Life changes people. Pain changes people. Sometimes love isn't enough. He nodded, as if those words gave him permission to breathe again. Thank you, he whispered. Another long silence. The sky above us was turning darker. The night was settling in. We can't stay here, I said gently. You'll get sick. He hesitated, then finally nodded. Okay, but not somewhere crowded, somewhere quiet. We'll find a place, I reassured him. He tried to stand but stumbled. I quickly held his arm. Careful. Sorry, he murmured. It's okay. Together we walked slowly down the street. I could feel how weak he was. Every part of him felt tired, fragile, worn down by years of struggle. Yet he walked with me, trusting me, leaning on me in silence. And as we walked, something inside my heart began to shift. Maybe it was compassion. Maybe it was old love resurfacing in a quiet way. But whatever it was, I knew this journey was going to change everything. We stopped outside a small, old motel, the kind of place no one pays attention to. Hidden, quiet, neutral. He looked at the sign, then looked at me. Are you sure? he asked softly. Yes, I said. You're not alone anymore. He smiled faintly, the first real smile I had seen on his face. And then he whispered, "Thank you for coming back into my life, even if it was by accident." I placed my hand on the door. "It wasn't an accident," I said quietly. "Some stories aren't finished yet." And deep in my heart, I knew this was only the beginning.
The motel room was small and quiet. A single dim lamp in the corner, 2 chairs, a narrow bed covered with an old blanket. The kind of place where people hide, rest, or disappear for a little while. I closed the door behind us, and for the first time since finding him on the street, I looked at him properly. Not as a stranger, not as a painful memory, but as a human being who had walked through darkness for far too long. He sat on the edge of the bed, his shoulders bent forward, his breathing slow and unsteady. The room was warm, but his hands were still shaking from the cold. I handed him a bottle of water from my grocery bag. He took it with trembling fingers. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You're welcome," I replied, taking a seat in the chair across from him. "I'm here now, and I'm listening." He nodded slowly, almost nervously. "It's strange," he whispered, "being in the same room with you again. I didn't think this would ever happen." "Me neither," I admitted. We sat in silence for a few moments. The muffled hum of traffic outside sounded far away. Inside the room, everything felt still and fragile. Finally, I spoke. "You said you know something about my family. Something dangerous. Can you please tell me the truth now?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he rubbed his hands together as if trying to gather courage. "It's not easy," he murmured. "I promised someone I would never speak about it." "Who?" I asked. He took a slow breath. "Your brother." My heart dropped. "My brother?" I repeated. "What does he have to do with any of this?" He met my eyes, and for the first time, I saw real fear in his expression. "Everything," he whispered. I leaned back, trying to keep my heartbeat steady. "My brother would never hurt you," I said slowly. "He was always good to you." He gave a sad, tired laugh. "Yes, he was. He treated me like family, until the day he didn't." "What did he do?" His voice lowered, as if someone might be listening through the walls. "He did not push me physically, but he pushed me into a corner I could never escape." I felt my chest tighten. "Start from the beginning," I told him softly. "I need to understand." He nodded and began. "It happened shortly after we separated. I returned to town, mostly to see you from afar. I didn't plan to talk to you. I just wanted to see if you were okay." I looked down at my hands. A quiet ache spread through my heart. "I didn't know," I whispered. "I know," he said gently. "I made sure you didn't." He took another breath, steadying himself. "One evening, I saw your brother outside his office. He looked worried, troubled. I approached him just to say hello, but instead of greeting me, he pulled me aside and took me into his car." "Why would he do that?" His eyes darkened. "Because he had a secret, and he thought I could help him hide it." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What secret?" He exhaled slowly. "Money," he said softly. "Money that belonged to the company. Money that went missing under his name." I froze. "My brother would never steal," I said almost too quickly. "I know him. He wouldn't do that." He nodded. "I thought the same, but he told me he didn't take it. He said someone framed him, and that he needed help hiding the papers until he could prove himself innocent. I shook my head, confused. Why did he come to you? Why not the police? He lowered his gaze. He said he couldn't trust the police, that someone powerful was involved, someone who wanted him destroyed. I swallowed hard. And you believed him? Yes, he whispered, because at that time I still trusted your family. I believed your brother. I thought I was doing the right thing. And then? I asked. He rubbed his forehead. I took the documents. I agreed to hide them for him. Where? In a locker. In another city. I stared at him. And this is what pushed you into the streets? He nodded slowly. Yes. Because soon after that, things went bad. Very bad. I could hear his breathing change. He looked down at the floor as if replaying old nightmares. He continued. A few days after I hid the documents, 2 men came looking for me. They knew my name. They knew my address. They knew everything. I leaned forward. Who were they? People working for the real thief, he whispered. They wanted the documents back. They told me if I didn't return them, something terrible would happen. My chest tightened. What did they do? He gave a faint, broken smile. They destroyed everything I had left. My job, my room, my phone, my bank account. They made sure I had nothing. And they warned me never to involve your brother or you. I felt a shiver climb up my spine. But why? Why go after you? Because your brother used my name when he hid the trail, he said softly. He said it was the safest way. I covered my mouth. He put your name on the documents? Yes. My heart dropped. And when the men couldn't find the papers, they came back. They threatened to hurt me. They told me to disappear or they would disappear me. My breath caught. So you ran? He nodded. I ran from the city, from the men, from your brother, from everything. I changed places. I slept in shelters. I moved again and again. But they always found me. Eventually, I stopped running. He looked at his worn-out shoes. And that's how I ended up here, on the street. Because I couldn't live like a normal person anymore. I was always being watched. Tears filled my eyes. You went through all that alone? Yes, he said quietly. Because I didn't want you to get dragged into it. My voice trembled. But you should have told me. He smiled weakly. I thought you hated me, and maybe I hated myself too much to ask for your help. A long silence filled the room. The truth was heavy, unexpected, painful, complicated. Where are the documents now? I asked. He looked up at me, almost afraid. I still have them, he said. They're hidden, far away, but those men are still searching for them. And as long as they exist, I am never safe. I felt a deep, slow breath leave my chest. Everything suddenly made sense. His fear, his hesitation, his refusal to come with me earlier, his life on the streets. Why did you tell me now? I whispered. He looked straight into my eyes. Because I saw you today. And for the first time in years, I felt safe enough to speak. My vision blurred with tears. And what do you want me to do? I asked. He swallowed hard. That depends. Do you still trust your brother? I looked down at my hands, unsure. He watched my silence and nodded as if he already knew the answer. I didn't think so, he murmured. I looked at him again. What do we do now? I whispered. His voice was barely audible. I don't know, but I'm tired of running. I reached out slowly and touched his hand. You're not running anymore. Not alone. He closed his eyes as if those words finally gave him a small drop of peace. And in that quiet motel room, with the soft hum of the heater and the heavy truth between us, our real journey began. That night in the small, dim motel room felt heavier than any night I had lived through in years. The air was warm, but inside my chest, a quiet storm was forming. Everything my ex had just told me kept replaying in my mind. My brother? Documents. Stolen money. Dangerous men? A life destroyed because he trusted the wrong person? I sat there for a long time, staring at the floor, my hands folded tightly in my lap. He lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, his face tired but strangely calm, as if telling the truth had lifted a piece of the burden he'd been carrying. After a few minutes, I finally spoke. "Why didn't my brother try to find you?" I asked quietly. He sighed. "He did, but not for the reason you imagine." I looked at him. "What do you mean?" "He didn't come to check if I was safe. He came to destroy the evidence." My stomach sank. "You're saying my brother tried to silence you?" He closed his eyes. "Not physically, but he threatened me. He begged me to give him the papers. He said it was the only way to save his career, his family, his reputation." I felt a strange pressure behind my eyes, a mix of anger and disbelief. "He could have come to me," I whispered. "He could have trusted me. He could have told me the truth." "He couldn't," he said softly. "You always believed in him. He thought, if you knew, you would hate him." "I don't hate him," I said sadly. I don't understand." He nodded, as if he had expected that from me. "Your brother didn't steal the money. I believe that. I truly do. But he hid the evidence the wrong way. He trusted the wrong people, and he dragged me into his mess." I took a slow breath. "And those men? The ones who threatened you? Who are they?" His voice lowered. "They work for someone powerful. Someone inside the system. Someone who wanted the money gone. Someone who wanted your brother blamed." I felt a shiver run through my spine. "And he blamed you," I said softly. "Yes," he whispered. "He used my name because I wasn't part of his world anymore. I was easy to throw away." My chest tightened painfully. I didn't know whether to cry, scream, or sit in stunned silence. Everything felt twisted, unfair, impossible to process. After a long pause, he turned toward me. "Do you remember the last time we saw each other?" he asked. I nodded slowly. "Yes, at the bus station." He gave a sad smile. "You were angry, hurt. You didn't want to look at me." "I was tired," I said softly, "of fighting, of waiting, of hoping." "I know," he whispered, "and I don't blame you, but that day, the men were following me. I realized I couldn't see you again. It was too dangerous." He paused. "And that is why I vanished. Not because I wanted to leave you forever, but because staying would have destroyed you too." A tear rolled down my cheek before I could stop it. "I thought you stopped loving me," I whispered. He shook his head slowly, painfully. "No, I stopped loving myself." The room fell silent again. A kind of silence that comes after years of misunderstandings finally find their voice. After some time, I stood up and walked toward the small motel window. The streetlight outside cast a soft glow on the pavement. A dog barked somewhere far away. Cars passed occasionally, their headlights drawing brief lines across the curtains. He sat up slowly. "I know you're thinking about what to do," he said gently. I didn't answer. He continued, "You want to confront your brother. You want to ask him the truth. You want to fix things." "I don't know," I said quietly. "I don't even know who to trust right now." He nodded. "That's why I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want to put you in this position." I turned toward him. "You didn't put me here. The truth did." He looked down. "I still care about your family, and I don't want anything I say to hurt them. But I also don't want to die with this secret." Hearing him say "die" sent a sharp pain through my heart. "You're not going to die," I said firmly. He gave a small, tired smile. "I'm not scared of dying. I'm scared of dying without being understood." My throat tightened. "You are understood," I whispered. "At least by me." A small tear slid down his cheek. He brushed it away quickly, but I saw it. Then something happened. Something small, but enough to change the energy in the room. There was a sound outside. A slow, heavy tap. Then another. Footsteps. Right outside the door. My ex froze, his breath caught in his throat. "What is it?" I whispered. He held up a finger. Silence. We both listened. Someone was standing directly outside the room, not moving, not knocking, just standing there. My heart began to race. He mouthed the words, "They found me." My hands went cold instantly. The steps moved slightly, like someone adjusting their weight, like someone waiting. I looked at him with panic, but he shook his head slowly, signaling me not to make a sound. After what felt like a full minute, the footsteps finally moved slowly, then faded down the hallway. I exhaled shakily. "What do we do?" I whispered. He swallowed hard. "We can't stay here," he murmured. "Not after that." "Was it really them?" I asked. "I don't know," he whispered, "but I can't take the chance." I put a hand on his shoulder. "Then we leave right now." He nodded, wiping his face with the blanket before standing up. He was still weak. His legs shook. He looked fragile, but he tried to stay strong. I picked up my bag. As we reached the door, he stopped. "There's something else," he said softly. "Something I didn't tell you." I turned, confused. "What is it?" He hesitated, then whispered, "The documents, they don't just prove your brother is innocent." My heart pounded. "What else do they prove?" He looked at me with eyes full of fear and something deeper. "They reveal who the real thief is." I felt my knees weaken. He stepped closer. "And it's someone you know." The room felt colder. My voice came out in a whisper. "Who?" He opened his mouth to speak. But just then, a loud knock exploded against the door. 3 hard, sharp knocks that shook the entire frame. I gasped. He flinched. Another knock. Then another. He grabbed my wrist. "No matter what happens, stay behind me," he whispered. The knocking grew louder. He looked at me with terrified eyes. "They found us." And in that moment, everything changed. The danger was no longer in the past. It was standing right outside our door. The knocking didn't stop. Each hit against the door felt like a heartbeat out of rhythm, like the sound was shaking the thin walls of the motel and the thin layer of courage left inside my chest. My ex gripped my wrist tightly. His hand was cold. Not trembling, cold. the kind of cold that comes from fear that has been growing for years. "Stay behind me," he whispered again. I stepped back without arguing, not because I agreed, but because I knew he needed to feel like he was protecting me. Another heavy knock. Then a voice. Deep, slow, controlled. "Open the door." My ex's face went pale. I could see his throat move as he swallowed. My heart hammered in my ears. Every instinct screamed for me to run, to hide, to escape. But there was nowhere to go. One door, one thin window, and danger standing outside like a shadow with a name. My ex leaned close to the door, but didn't open it. "What do you want?" he called out, trying to keep his voice steady. The voice replied, "You know why we're here." My ex flinched. "No," he whispered under his breath. "No, not again." I placed a hand on his back gently. "Who is it?" I whispered. He shook his head slightly, as if the truth itself burned his tongue. The knocking returned, slower this time, more deliberate. "Open the door, son. We just want to talk." Son. That word hit differently. It wasn't a threat. It was almost familiar. My ex squeezed his eyes shut. "They always say that," he whispered. "Just talk. Then they cake everything." I felt fear twist inside me. The voice spoke again, louder this time. "You don't want us opening it for you." My ex stepped back. "They know we're inside," he murmured. "They won't leave. We have to go." "How?" I asked. "There's only one door." He glanced toward the bathroom window. "It's small, but it's better than that door." Before I could respond, the doorknob rattled violently. I gasped. "They're trying to force it," he said. I ran to the bathroom and pushed the tiny window open. Cold night air rushed inside. "It's narrow," I said. "You won't fit." He came close behind me. "I'll manage," he whispered. "I have to." Then he stopped. His eyes softened as he looked at me. "You go first." "No," I said instantly. "You go first. You're the one they're after." He shook his head. "And that's exactly why you need to get out, before me." There was no time to argue. The banging grew louder. This time, the sound of something metallic scraping against the lock. "They have tools," he whispered. "They're breaking in." I felt adrenaline flooding through my body. I put one leg through the window, then the other, squeezing through with difficulty. My clothes caught on the frame, but I forced myself out. The air outside was cold and still, a quiet parking lot. Moonlight, no people. I landed on the ground, breathing hastily. "Hurry," I whispered. He pushed the small backpack through the window. Then he climbed up, struggling, his arms shaking. Then, a crack, a loud metallic snap. The lock had broken. I heard the door burst open from inside the room. "Go!" he gasped. He pushed himself halfway through, but then something grabbed his ankle from inside. A hand. Then a second hand. He cried out in pain. I reached up and grabbed his arms. "Pull!" he shouted. I pulled with all my strength. My hands burned, my muscles trembled. But the person on the other side was strong. Too strong. "Let him go!" I screamed, even though no one outside could hear me. I could feel him slipping back. "No!" I cried. "Don't let them take you!" Then, with one last desperate push, he used his free leg to kick backward. A thud. A grunt. The grip loosened for a moment. And in that moment, I pulled him with everything I had. We both fell onto the ground outside, rolling onto the cold concrete. He gasped for air. But before we had time to breathe, voices shouted from inside the room. "There, outside!" "Run!" he yelled. We sprinted toward the back of the motel.
My legs felt weak, but fear made them move. The sound of footsteps followed us, fast, heavy. We reached a narrow alley behind the building. A fence blocked the path. He stared at it. "I can't climb that," he said. "They broke my ribs weeks ago. You have to try." "No," he said firmly. "You climb it. Now." "I'm not leaving you." He grabbed my shoulders. "If they catch me, it will buy you time. But if they catch you too, everything ends. The truth ends. The documents end. Your brother's life ends." "Stop saying that," I whispered, tears filling my eyes. He gave a weak smile. "You were always the brave one." I shook my head violently. "Don't talk like this. Come with me, please." The footsteps grew louder. We were running out of time. He reached into the backpack and pulled out a small envelope. His hands were trembling. "Take this." "What is it?" "The names, the real thief, the people behind everything, the proof of who framed your brother." My heart stopped. "And your name isn't on it," he said softly. I stared at him. "Then whose name is?" He opened his mouth to answer, but before he could, the footsteps were suddenly too close. Shadows appeared at the end of the alley. He shoved the envelope into my hands. "Climb," he whispered urgently. I stared at him with shaking hands, tears slipping down my face. "Please, please come with me." He gave one small nod. "Together." He reached for the fence, and for the first time in years, I saw something in his eyes. Hope, even if it was fragile, even if it was fading, even if it was the last thing he had left. We climbed, slow, desperate, breathless. The shouts behind us grew louder. Then we jumped to the other side and ran into the darkness behind the motel, our shadows stretching long across the pavement. For a moment, just a moment, we were free. But freedom felt fragile, like it could break any second. He clutched his ribs, his face tight with pain. "We need a safe place," he whispered. "Where?" I asked. He hesitated. "There's someone," he said quietly. "Someone I trust." I nodded. "Then we go there." He looked at me with a strange mixture of fear and tenderness. "But before we do," he said softly, "you need to read what's in that envelope." I held the small envelope tightly. "What's inside?" I whispered again. He looked down, then back at me. "It will break your heart, and it will change everything." My breath caught. He stepped closer and whispered, "The real thief is someone in your family." My legs went weak. I shook my head. "No, that's not possible." He nodded slowly. "It is." I felt the world tilt, dark, cold, silent. He placed a shaking hand on my arm. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I didn't want to be the one to tell you." My mouth dried. "Who?" I whispered. He hesitated, then opened his lips. But before he could, a black van turned the corner ahead of us, headlights flashing across our faces. He grabbed my hand instantly. They found us again. And the chase began. The black van rolled toward us fast, too fast for the narrow street we were standing in. Its headlights cut through the darkness like two white blades, and for a second, the light hit my ex's face, revealing pure terror. "Run!" he shouted. We didn't think, we just moved. Our feet slammed against the pavement as we sprinted into the night. I could hear the van's engine grow louder behind us, heavy and angry like a predator catching the scent of its prey. He pulled me toward a small side street. "This way." We ran between two abandoned houses, the shadows swallowing us whole. The van couldn't fit through this alley. That bought us a few seconds, but not safety. Not yet. The alley opened into a field behind an old warehouse.
Overgrown weeds, broken windows, a single flickering street lamp. We slowed down just enough for him to catch his breath. My ex leaned against the brick wall, one hand pressed against his ribs. "You're hurt," I whispered. "I'll live," he said, though his voice trembled. "We need to hide," I said. "They'll circle the block." He nodded. And then he said something unexpected. "There's someone who can help, someone I trust with my life." "Who is it?" I asked. He hesitated. "A woman named Mara," he said quietly. "She was my landlord once, but more than that, she's the only person who believed me when everything fell apart." I nodded. "Where does she live?" 3 blocks down, near the old train tracks." 3 blocks. Between us and safety, 3 blocks of darkness and uncertainty. He tightened the straps on the backpack that held the documents. And then he looked at me, eyes steady. "We go together," he said softly. "No matter what." We started walking fast, keeping close to the shadows, careful not to step into the light of the street lamps. Every sound felt louder at night. A barking dog, a distant car alarm, our breathing. We reached the 2nd block when he suddenly grabbed my arm and pulled me behind a dumpster. "What?" He pointed. The black van was back, crawling slowly along the main road ahead of us. "They're circling," he whispered. The fear hit my stomach like a punch. "Why?" I whispered shakily. "What do they want so badly?" He looked at the ground. "Because the documents expose someone powerful, and powerful people don't like being exposed." "Who?" I asked. He didn't answer. We waited until the van disappeared around the corner, then we continued. 1 more block. Just one. We reached a row of small, old houses near the unused train tracks. Most were dark, silent, lifeless. But one house, the one at the far end, had a dim porch light glowing. "That's her place," he whispered. We hurried across the yard. Before he could knock, the front door opened slightly. A thin beam of warm light spilled into the night. A thin woman in her late 50s stood in the doorway, her hair tied back, her face lined with worry. When she saw him, her expression changed instantly. "Oh my God," she whispered. "What have they done to you?" He offered a weak smile. "Good to see you too, Mara." She stepped aside immediately. "Get inside. Quickly." We entered the small house and she locked the door behind us. Inside, the house smelled faintly of herbs and old wooden furniture. Warm, safe. Mara guided us to a small living room. "Sit," she instructed him. He sank onto the couch, exhausted. She touched his face gently. "You look worse than last time," she murmured. "I probably am." Her eyes moved to me. "And who are you?" she asked softly. I swallowed. "I'm with him," I said. She nodded once. "Then you're safe here too." I felt tears burn behind my eyes, but I blinked them away. Mara moved quickly, bringing water, a blanket, a small first aid kit. "You're running from them again," she said without looking at him. He nodded. "They're getting closer. Too close." "And you have the papers?" she asked. He tapped the backpack. "Always." She exhaled deeply. "I told you years ago, this won't end until the truth comes out." He looked at me. "She needs to know," he said quietly. Mara turned to me. "What do you know so far?" "Only that someone in my family is involved." Mara closed her eyes slowly, as if that truth itself hurt her. Then she sat down across from me, and she spoke carefully. "There are 3 names in the documents. 3 people responsible." My pulse quickened. One, Mara continued, is a senior officer in the finance division. The second is a man who has been laundering money for a long time. And the third? I whispered. Mara hesitated, then looked at my ex, silently asking for permission. He nodded. Then she turned to me. The third name, she whispered, is your cousin. It felt like the air left my lungs. My cousin? I whispered. No, that can't be right. He works in a bank, yes, but he's honest. He has a family. He would never. He would, my ex said quietly, and he did. I shook my head harder. That doesn't make sense. My cousin wasn't even close to the company where my brother worked. How could he be involved? My ex leaned forward slightly. Your cousin was the middleman. He transferred the money, he forged the signatures. He was the one who handed me the final records right before everything went wrong. I stared at him in disbelief. He framed my brother? No, my ex said softly. He didn't work alone. They needed someone to blame. Someone small enough to destroy but big enough to distract people. And they chose you, I whispered. Exactly. Anger, disbelief, and heartbreak twisted inside me. My cousin, he wouldn't do this to our family. He wouldn't. Mara's voice was quiet. He already did. I covered my mouth with my hands as tears rose. My ex continued gently. He was in debt, deep debt, and they promised him protection. They promised him money. They promised him safety if he helped them. A tear slipped down my cheek. And he threw you to the wolves, I whispered. Yes. And he let my brother lose everything? Yes. And my voice broke. And he let me hate you for years? My ex closed his eyes. That's why I didn't want to tell you, he whispered. Because I knew this would hurt you more than anything. I wiped my tears with shaking hands. Why didn't you tell me the truth back then? He looked down. I didn't want to destroy your family. Silence. A long, painful silence. Mara stood. You two need to rest, she said. I'll keep watch. They won't get past me. He tried to protest. Mara, you don't have to. She raised a hand. I've protected you before. I'll do it again. We sat quietly listening to the faint hum of the old refrigerator. For a moment, he reached out and gently took my hand in his. I'm sorry, he whispered, for everything. I squeezed his fingers. I'm sorry, too. He's surprised. For what? For believing the worst of you. He looked down. I never blamed you. I blamed myself. We sat in silence for a while, our hands still together. Then, I remembered the envelope he had given me earlier. It was still in my pocket. Slowly, I pulled it out. His eyes widened. You don't have to read it now, he said softly. Yes, I whispered. I do. With trembling fingers, I opened the envelope. Inside were 3 papers. The first showed my cousin's name in bold letters, attached to a series of transactions. The second revealed the senior officer's signature authorizing illegal transfers. And the third, my breath caught. The third was a recorded statement. In my ex's handwriting, a confession, a story, a truth. About how he tried to stop them, how he tried to save my brother, how he was threatened, how he disappeared to protect me. My chest filled with something heavy, something painful. He watched me quietly, waiting for my reaction. I looked at him through blurry eyes. You were trying to save us, I whispered. He nodded once. And you paid the price for it.
His voice broke. I would do it again. My tears fell freely. He reached out.
Mara's voice shook when she spoke. They're outside. 2 men, same van. They're checking every house. My ex stood too quickly and winced, grabbing his ribs. Mara, he whispered urgently, you need to hide us. She didn't hesitate. Follow me. We moved down a narrow hallway, past a series of old picture frames, to a small wooden door near the floor. It looked like a storage space, maybe for cleaning supplies or tools. Mara knelt down and lifted the latch. A cool breath of air escaped from the darkness below. This used to be a root cellar, she whispered. No one knows it exists. Get inside. Quiet. My ex leaned down first. His movements were stiff, painful. I held his arm to steady him. Then I climbed in after him. The cellar was small, low ceiling, stone walls, and the faint smell of earth. It was barely big enough for the 2 of us. We crouched close together, the darkness wrapping around us like a heavy blanket. Mara lowered the door, but didn't close it fully. We could hear her footsteps as she walked back toward the living room. And then we heard it. A hard knock. Sharp. Confident. Threatening. My ex tensed beside me. A man's voice echoed through the house. Sorry to bother you, ma'am. We're looking for someone. Mara's voice remained steady. I live alone. Have you seen anyone pass by? A man, maybe injured, and a woman with him. Mara paused just long enough for my heart to stop. No, she said. Haven't seen a thing. The man didn't believe her. I could hear it in the silence that followed, a silence full of suspicion. Another voice spoke, deeper, more dangerous. Mind if we take a look around? My ex closed his eyes. His breathing grew shallow. No, Mara replied. No, you cannot. My heart thudded. The first man replied, his tone returning sharp and cold. We weren't asking permission. Footsteps entered the house. Heavy boots, more than one pair. They moved through the living room, searching carelessly, knocking things over, opening drawers, pushing furniture aside. My ex leaned close to me and whispered, barely audible, if they find the door, run. No, I whispered back. I'm not leaving you. He closed his eyes. A single tear slipped down his cheek. Above us, a man's voice barked. Check the back rooms. The footsteps grew louder, closer, too close. We held our breath. The cellar door above us vibrated slightly. Someone had stepped very near it. My hand squeezed his tightly. Then, the man spoke again. Nothing here. His footsteps moved away. I exhaled faintly, afraid even my breath might give us away. After several minutes that felt like hours, the men gathered near the front door. Let's go, one of them said. They must have changed direction, but we'll find them. Then the door slammed shut. Silence. Long, fragile silence. Mara waited a few minutes before she whispered, "They're gone." She opened the cellar door. We climbed out slowly, our legs stiff from crouching. "I'm sorry," Mara said quietly. "This is getting more dangerous than before." My ex nodded. "They won't stop. Not until they recover those documents." Mara looked at the backpack, then at us. "You can't run forever," she said. "Eventually, the truth needs to be told." I swallowed hard. What do we do? My ex turned to me, something shifting in his eyes. "We reveal everything," he said softly. "Your brother, the stolen money, the men behind it, your cousin, all of it." Fear twisted inside me. Do you know what that means? What will happen to my cousin, his family?
My ex's voice was gentle. What about your brother's life? What about mine? I felt the weight of those words settle deep into my chest. Mara placed a hand on my shoulder. Truth always hurts, but silence destroys. I looked down at the envelope in my hands, the names inside, the signatures, the evidence, everything that had broken so many lives, and maybe could save one. My ex took a slow breath. There's something I haven't told you. I looked up. His expression was strange. Sad, guilty, almost relieved. I didn't just disappear because they threatened me. I disappeared because I was scared of myself. What do you mean? I asked. He ran his hair through. After your cousin betrayed me, after the company accused me, after your brother cut me off, I wanted to die. My heart ached. I thought I was worthless. I thought I had failed you. I thought maybe they were right about me. He looked down, voice trembling. So I left. Not to protect you, but because I didn't think I deserved you anymore. I felt tears filling my eyes. You should have come to me, I whispered. I would have stood with you. I know, he said softly, but I couldn't let you carry my shame. I touched his face gently. You were never ashamed to me. He closed his eyes, as if those words were a balm he had waited years to feel. Mara cleared her throat softly. You two have suffered enough. It's time to end this. How? I whispered. She pointed to the backpack. You take those documents to the only person who can protect you. Who? I asked. Her answer made my heart freeze. Your brother. My breath hitched. My brother? But he threatened him. He destroyed evidence. Mara shook her head. He panicked. He made terrible choices. But he is not your enemy. My ex nodded slowly. He'd tried to fix things. He'd tried to cover up what your cousin did because he was scared of losing everything. But he wasn't a thief. I sank onto the couch, overwhelmed. So, I have to face him, I whispered. After everything? Yes, my ex said gently, and he will tell you the rest of the truth. I looked up at him. There's more? He nodded. And you deserve to hear it. A long silence filled the room. Then I wiped my tears and stood. Okay, let's go. My ex stood too, though pain flickered in his eyes. I'll be with you, he said softly, every step of the way. We thanked Mara, hugged her, promised to return when it was safe. Then we stepped into the night. The world felt colder, but also clearer. We walked toward the edge of the street, ready to leave. Before we reached the corner, he stopped and gently took my hand. Are you sure? He asked. I squeezed his hand. No more running. No more hiding. It's time to end this. We walked to my brother's house. Every step felt heavier than the last. When we reached the familiar gate, I hesitated. My ex looked at me. You're strong enough, he whispered. And somehow I believed him. I knocked. A moment later, my brother opened the door. His face drained of color when he saw us. His eyes widened. He whispered my ex's name like it was a ghost. You're alive? My ex nodded slowly. And we need to talk. He looked between us, confused, guilty, terrified. What is this? He whispered. I lifted the envelope. This is the truth. And I want to hear it from you. His face crumpled, his shoulders sagged, and in a trembling voice, he whispered, I'm sorry. I should have told you everything. Then finally, the truth began. And for the first time in years, I felt the weight of the past begin to loosen.
Mara's voice shook when she spoke. They're outside. 2 men, same van. They're checking every house. My ex stood too quickly and winced, grabbing his ribs. Mara, he whispered urgently, you need to hide us. She didn't hesitate. Follow me. We moved down a narrow hallway, past a series of old picture frames, to a small wooden door near the floor. It looked like a storage space, maybe for cleaning supplies or tools. Mara knelt down and lifted the latch. A cool breath of air escaped from the darkness below. This used to be a root cellar, she whispered. No one knows it exists. Get inside. Quiet. My ex leaned down first. His movements were stiff, painful. I held his arm to steady him. Then I climbed in after him. The cellar was small, low ceiling, stone walls, and the faint smell of earth. It was barely big enough for the 2 of us. We crouched close together, the darkness wrapping around us like a heavy blanket. Mara lowered the door, but didn't close it fully. We could hear her footsteps as she walked back toward the living room. And then we heard it. A hard knock. Sharp. Confident. Threatening. My ex tensed beside me. A man's voice echoed through the house. Sorry to bother you, ma'am. We're looking for someone. Mara's voice remained steady. I live alone. Have you seen anyone pass by? A man, maybe injured, and a woman with him. Mara paused just long enough for my heart to stop. No, she said. Haven't seen a thing. The man didn't believe her. I could hear it in the silence that followed, a silence full of suspicion. Another voice spoke, deeper, more dangerous. Mind if we take a look around? My ex closed his eyes. His breathing grew shallow. No, Mara replied. No, you cannot. My heart thudded. The first man replied, his tone returning sharp and cold. We weren't asking permission. Footsteps entered the house. Heavy boots, more than one pair. They moved through the living room, searching carelessly, knocking things over, opening drawers, pushing furniture aside. My ex leaned close to me and whispered, barely audible, if they find the door, run. No, I whispered back. I'm not leaving you. He closed his eyes. A single tear slipped down his cheek. Above us, a man's voice barked. Check the back rooms. The footsteps grew louder, closer, too close. We held our breath. The cellar door above us vibrated slightly. Someone had stepped very near it. My hand squeezed his tightly. Then, the man spoke again. Nothing here. His footsteps moved away. I exhaled faintly, afraid even my breath might give us away. After several minutes that felt like hours, the men gathered near the front door. Let's go, one of them said. They must have changed direction, but we'll find them. Then the door slammed shut. Silence. Long, fragile silence. Mara waited a few minutes before she whispered, They're gone. She opened the cellar door. We climbed out slowly, our legs stiff from crouching. I'm sorry, Mara said quietly. This is getting more dangerous than before. My ex nodded. They won't stop. Not until they recover those documents. Mara looked at the backpack, then at us. You can't run forever, she said. Eventually, the truth needs to be told. I swallowed hard. What do we do? My ex turned to me, something shifting in his eyes. We reveal everything, he said softly. Your brother, the stolen money, the men behind it, your cousin, all of it. Fear twisted inside me. Do you know what that means? What will happen to my cousin, his family? My ex's voice was gentle.
What about your brother's life? What about mine? I felt the weight of those words settle deep into my chest. Mara placed a hand on my shoulder. Truth always hurts, but silence destroys. I looked down at the envelope in my hands, the names inside, the signatures, the evidence, everything that had broken so many lives, and maybe could save one. My ex took a slow breath. There's something I haven't told you. I looked up. His expression was strange. Sad, guilty, almost relieved. I didn't just disappear because they threatened me. I disappeared because I was scared of myself. What do you mean? I asked. He ran his hair through. After your cousin betrayed me, after the company accused me, after your brother cut me off, I wanted to die. My heart ached. I thought I was worthless. I thought I had failed you. I thought maybe they were right about me. He looked down, voice trembling. So I left. Not to protect you, but because I didn't think I deserved you anymore. I felt tears filling my eyes. You should have come to me, I whispered. I would have stood with you. I know, he said softly, but I couldn't let you carry my shame. I touched his face gently. You were never ashamed to me. He closed his eyes, as if those words were a balm he had waited years to feel. Mara cleared her throat softly. You two have suffered enough. It's time to end this. How? I whispered. She pointed to the backpack. You take those documents to the only person who can protect you. Who? I asked. Her answer made my heart freeze. Your brother. My breath hitched. My brother? But he threatened him. He destroyed evidence. Mara shook her head. He panicked. He made terrible choices. But he is not your enemy. My ex nodded slowly. He'd tried to fix things. He'd tried to cover up what your cousin did because he was scared of losing everything. But he wasn't a thief. I sank onto the couch, overwhelmed. So, I have to face him, I whispered. After everything? Yes, my ex said gently, and he will tell you the rest of the truth. I looked up at him. There's more? He nodded. And you deserve to hear it. A long silence filled the room. Then I wiped my tears and stood. Okay, let's go. My ex stood too, though pain flickered in his eyes. I'll be with you, he said softly, every step of the way. We thanked Mara, hugged her, promised to return when it was safe. Then we stepped into the night. The world felt colder, but also clearer. We walked toward the edge of the street, ready to leave. Before we reached the corner, he stopped and gently took my hand. Are you sure? He asked. I squeezed his hand. No more running. No more hiding. It's time to end this. We walked to my brother's house. Every step felt heavier than the last. When we reached the familiar gate, I hesitated. My ex looked at me. You're strong enough, he whispered. And somehow I believed him. I knocked. A moment later, my brother opened the door. His face drained of color when he saw us. His eyes widened. He whispered my ex's name like it was a ghost. You're alive? My ex nodded slowly. And we need to talk. He looked between us, confused, guilty, terrified. What is this? He whispered. I lifted the envelope. This is the truth. And I want to hear it from you. His face crumpled, his shoulders sagged, and in a trembling voice, he whispered, I'm sorry. I should have told you everything. Then finally, the truth began. And for the first time in years, I felt the weight of the past begin to loosen.
For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The street around us was quiet, almost frozen, as if the world itself was waiting for what would happen next. He wiped his face with the back of his trembling hand and continued in a weak voice. I kept thinking, if you ever saw me again, you would feel disgust, or regret, or pity. And I didn't want any of that. You deserved a life without my shadows. He looked down again, almost afraid to see my reaction. I didn't reach out because I thought you were better off, forgetting me. His words felt heavy, not because they were cruel, but because they were full of a pain he had carried alone for too long. I took a quiet breath. I never forgot you, I said softly, not even when I wanted to. He closed his eyes and a single tear escaped. You were the only good thing I ever had, and I destroyed it with my own hands. He paused, as if gathering strength for the most difficult part. I want to tell you something I've never told anyone, not even when I still had a home, a job, a life. I nodded, waiting. He took a deep breath and said, I didn't walk away because I stopped loving you. I walked away because the doctor told me something I was too ashamed to tell you. My heart stopped for a second. He continued, voice trembling. They told me I had a condition, not life-ending, but something that would slowly weaken me mentally and physically. Something that would make me forget things, get confused, lose control over parts of my life. He pressed his fingers against his forehead, as if the memory itself hurt. He thought I could handle it. He thought I could hide it, but I started making mistakes. Missing work, forgetting simple things, losing myself little by little. He swallowed hard. And I didn't want you to watch me fade. I didn't want you to become a caretaker instead of a partner. So I walked away before the worst part began. My chest tightened. All these years, I had believed he left because he stopped caring, because he wanted freedom, because our love had died. But the truth was so different, so painfully different. He looked at me with those tired, defeated eyes. I thought I was protecting you, but I ended up destroying both of us. For the first time that night, I felt tears run freely down my cheeks. Because the truth wasn't cruel. It wasn't selfish. It wasn't betrayal. It was sacrifice. A lonely, misunderstood sacrifice that had cost him everything. I whispered, voice shaking, You should have told me. We could have faced it together. He shook his head slowly. I didn't want you to spend your best years taking care of someone who was falling apart. He let out a small, broken laugh. So I fell apart alone. I reached for his hand, something I never thought I would do again. His fingers were cold, fragile, almost weightless. I'm here now. I can't change the past, but I won't walk away from you tonight. For the first time since I found him, he looked at me with something close to hope. Small, fragile, trembling, but real. That moment, that single moment, felt like a second chance neither of us ever expected.
The night felt colder as we sat together on the curb, the quiet hum of the city surrounding us. He held my hand loosely, as if afraid that if he gripped too hard, I might disappear like everything else in his life. For a while, we didn't speak. There was nothing left to hide, only truths finally coming into the open after years of silence. At last, he took a slow breath. There's one last thing you deserve to know, he said quietly. The real truth about the documents and the person behind everything. I turned toward him, bracing myself. He nodded, bitterly. I didn't just run from your brother's mess. I ran because someone else wanted those documents destroyed, someone who had the most to lose.
I felt my stomach twist. Who? I whispered. He hesitated, then finally said the name. It was your brother's business partner. The words hit me like a punch. My brother's partner? But he's family. He's trusted. He stole the money, he said softly. He framed your brother when things went wrong. Your brother figured it out too late and tried to cover it up without exposing the truth. He was scared. He made stupid choices, but he wasn't the villain. I stared at him, stunned. And you? I asked. I was the loose end, he whispered. I discovered the missing transactions by accident. Once I knew, they needed me gone. His voice cracked. I didn't want to drag you into something dangerous, so I left. I thought, if I disappeared, you would be safe. My chest tightened with a painful mix of anger, sadness, and understanding. You were protecting everyone but yourself, I said. He laughed bitterly. I didn't think I mattered enough to protect. My heart broke at those words. Before I could speak, a car turned onto the street. Headlights washed over us for a moment before the vehicle parked a few meters away. My ex stiffened immediately. That's his car, he whispered, trembling. A man stepped out. Tall, well-dressed, confident. Too confident. My brother's business partner. His eyes found us instantly. My ex's hand tightened around mine. I didn't think he'd follow us. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The man walked closer, his expression calm. Too calm. You should have stayed gone, he said to my ex. You had one job, disappear. I stood up instinctively, placing myself between them. I know everything, I said, my voice shaking but steady. The missing money, the threats, the lies, all of it. He tilted his head, studying me with mild annoyance. You shouldn't get involved. This is between us. No, I said forcefully. This is my family, my life. His expression hardened. You think anyone will believe a man who's been living on the streets? A man with a medical condition? A man who vanished? My ex lowered his head, shame burning in his eyes. But I stood firmer. You targeted him because he was vulnerable, but I am not. He stepped closer. And what do you plan to do? My heart pounded. But I didn't back down. I recorded everything, I lied confidently. Every word, every confession, everything he told me tonight. His expression shifted, just for a second. A flash of uncertainty, fear. And I knew I had him. If anything happens to him, I said steadily, everything goes to the police. Your name, your transactions, your threats, all of it. The man stared at me long and hard. Then, surprisingly, he smirked. You're braver than I thought. He stepped back. But don't push your luck. He returned to his car, got in, and drove away without another word, but I knew the story wasn't over. Not legally, not morally, not emotionally. But for tonight, we were safe. I turned back to my ex. His eyes were filled with disbelief. You protected me, he whispered. You protected me first, I replied softly. He shook his head, overwhelmed. I don't deserve this kindness, Not after everything. I knelt in front of him, taking his trembling hands. You do, I said. For the first time in a long time, you do. He closed his eyes and a tear slid down his cheek, not from pain, not from fear, but from relief. Real relief. For the first time in years, he wasn't running, he wasn't hiding, he wasn't alone. I helped him stand, and we walked toward the faint glow of the bus stop lights. Not as lovers, not as strangers, but as two broken souls who finally understood each other. As we reached the corner, he whispered, "Thank you for finding me." I squeezed his hand gently. Maybe this time you didn't need to be found. Maybe you just needed someone to stay. He smiled. Small, tired, but real. And just like that,